it up here for the morning as usual, showing you going back to the previous day with the results for the Showdown Slates. As these videos highlight here, there are 3 games today, some somewhat exciting scenarios, even though the games may be blowouts. But looking back, we can see here that I did well in a triple up. To just pull out my phone, see how that did, for example, to just give you a little even help with that as well, simply by going and using a lot of the tools and tallying up projections throughout the day, as I went with Rondo, Sexton into guards, the forwards Beal, Ariza. I stuck in Howard in there because JaVale McGee was out. I noticed Ish Smith was a solid cash type play off the bench. LeBron and Whiteside, they were especially Whiteside chalky plays. Actually, there was no super chalk plays yesterday in total, like in cash, you would say, other than Bradley Beal. And LeBron was at 62%. Dwight Howard actually 74%. So there were some, but I'm going to try to keep pivoting away from those type of things in cash play. So probably I'll give some more guidance in that in the future. But on our main focus here, I just broke even on the showdowns. That's fine. I'm just doing minimal investment testing so we can see what's going on with that because of the 225 return. I'm just going to check out who the winner actually was, as I was up there earlier after the game of the Lakers and Brooklyn. I was viewing that game, but then, of course, with the late night sweat, somebody moved ahead by far there. Let's see. Looking at that one, though, the quarter jukebox. My particular best lineup was actually Rondo, Sexton. Whoops. Let's look at the right slate here. What do we got? Oh, okay. I see what happened. I actually did not play the Captain Showdown. I played the full slate. So that was a different strategy altogether. So really what we're looking at here as the only one I was able to actually do a showdown in was Portland, Dallas, 225 and out of 250 invested. So the winner was actually shared winning lineup of Lillard, Doncic at the guards, Anthony and Trent. Well, that doesn't matter. Utility spots. I'm sorry. Captain was Lillard. Utility was Doncic. I actually left him out in my best lineup. Not very smart, as I pulled him out of I didn't pull him out, but the optimizer limited him because of the way I set up, as I showed yesterday in my video, how I backed out my top cap to 49,000 instead of the maxed 50,000. I decided to take that off to allow more Doncic into my lineup. So I did do that. However, my top lineups, or at least my top lineup, did not have him for whatever reason, just because you can't fit him in all the lineups. So really simply, he was still close to 50%. I wanted to be different, see how it worked out. My top lineup had Lillard. He dropped 70 regular fantasy points last night. So, and just quick review as a summary, as to what all happened and what went down. Basically, I would say as myself, I got scared away from some of the Portland guys because the winner here had a lineup including Gary Trent. He didn't, beast out or anything, but you had Gary Trent and Ariza for Portland. Well, I did have Ariza, and I actually did have Curry, was also in the winning lineup, Anthony as well, and Lillard. I didn't have Doncic and Gary Trent. Gary Trent's salary allowed to put Doncic in there because it was 3,400. So that's how it goes. You pick one play that's optional by 2 players, and then you'll be in the winning, or at least share the winning lineup as far as that goes. Maybe, possibly, if I would have really kept my guns, and kept the total salary lower and different, maybe I could have even came out on top somehow. So that's another matter here for today. So now let's look at the slate. We got to look at here Milwaukee is an oddball game at 3 p.m. I'm expecting a blowout. You have to expect a blowout. You don't do that in cash games normally. But here, as I looked at and watched the last game, a couple notes here was that these guys had some good games last game out, especially Graham and PJ Washington. Miles Bridges had a few good, got hot a little bit game there. And so that's what happened there. As far as Milwaukee side, some guys had some good run off the bench, it appears. I don't, because they were not starting. They were at full health in that game. I think it was back in sometime in late November. DiVincenzo had a good game. Wesley Matthews had some good streaky shooting going on. They brought Corvin, of course. So all these guys you can consider in the blowout game, as in the final, I would say 7 minutes of the game. You're bringing in bench players off there, so you can look at these guys in the scoring, especially for this particular captain showdown. Um, as for Milwaukee, you got some guys, particularly that you can look at. They'll also bring up the bench and get their own specific run. As you can even go down as far as Bacon and bring him off the bench, include him in your lineups as well. Let's see what we get here though for the best value. I already put it in order. Monster value you're going to get out of Pat Connaughton, I believe. So I'm going to go ahead and watch him for the day. Make sure he gets locked. In fact, I can lock it right here on this optimizer for the slate. Connaughton at 12.9 x value. Very interesting. And then we look at 9.9 x value for Marvin Williams. Hey, he's a power forward, perhaps that comes off the bench as well. I don't know about that particularly, but like I said, let's look at his scoring actually. Last five versus Milwaukee, interestingly, always over 20 points or at least 20 points. So let's watch him as well. Sterling Brown off the bench, another guy from Milwaukee. We didn't see or really look at. For $1,000, hey, why not throw him in? So these are some interesting plays. Dragan Bender, he got involved last game as well with them, and he can score some decent off the bench. So let's look at him. Let's get at another angle. Look at the breakdown here for the most value on the DFS Army Optimizer. It's showing us here Bender. It's showing Corver, Bacon I mentioned, Biombo, Ilisova. This guy I never heard of for Charlotte. You never know. Maybe throw him in. I don't know. Wesley Matthews. So it did not include, interestingly, pick up on the value of Connaughton and Marvin Williams. So I would say this is more of a strong. These guys here probably more of a strong cash game for what I've kind of is leaned that way as far as my experience with the two optimizers. So you could consider that. I'll give more of a breakdown on Wealthy Fantasy Football, the blog, and the show. There's some breakdown there as well. Hoopball Fantasy, if you want to look at there as opposed to that, that's fine instead. And then you can click on over to my site from there if you want. Either way you want to go and find it, I'll leave links down there in the description of the site. Moving on there to another next blowout showdown slate game. The Toronto Raptors are at the Knicks. Last game, of course, it was in Toronto, and the Toronto Raptors handled them very well, even without Kyle Lowry. So we can look at that simulate something of a similar score. I would even go over this, 111 for Toronto, perhaps, or under this really for New York, because they won't score a whole lot of points there, even though they're getting healthy and so forth. But now RJ Barrett's out, so we got to look at that as a disadvantage there to New York overall. Of course, the main four guys: Siakam, Van Fleet, Lowry, and Powell. Ibaka, OG Anunoby off the bench. These other guys are going to get some run, of course. Gasol, Hollis Jefferson, even Terrence Davis, he can do well off the bench. So look at these guys for some scoring. So I got to drop this down here to the Toronto, New York, 7:30 tip-off, one game captain slate, and do the same thing we did with Milwaukee. Figure out who we might even want to lock in, and consider here a lot of options. We got to go over here once again, look at the value, and drop it down to the highest so we can get a nice feel for that. While that's going here, perhaps I can also set this up for you. So I got to wait for that to come up. Just dropping it down to the Toronto, New York slate. See how you're doing over here. We want optimal different results. Like I said last night, almost broke even on the one actual captain slate that I did play, and could have broken up, busted it open with other plays on the full GPP slates, but didn't happen, didn't fall that way. So that's fine. We'll do it again. We'll win the fall tonight or win the crush. So here's the values we're looking at. Strongly considering Ibaka at 6,800 on this captain slate at center. So we can look at him, watch him. OG Anunoby in a blowout game, let him get some run, of course. He's like a six man there. Morris and Robinson, those guys are fine. And Portis and Lowry, of course, maybe at the captain spot. That'll probably be chalky. So then we got to look at, we already go over here. Yes, we did. I already reviewed that with you. We also need to go over here, though, see what comes out as popping on this as far as in terms of value right now, at least early in the morning. We got Boucher. He's another good guy to get some run off the bench. Kevin Knox, include him in that as well. Then we got a bunch of Knicks. You can just throw those guys in there. I would favor, though, the Raptors based on what I saw in the last game and so forth back in December. You want to have more Raptors as a stack than the Knicks in this particular captain slate. So I would drop down here to the same guy showing Ibaka. I would include Hollis Jefferson. He could go off for 40 fantasy points. You never know. OG we mentioned, and then try to go and work some of those guys. Those might be the top guys actually. I'll put in, in tournaments, Boucher, Ibaka, RHJ, and OG. To be honest with you, so that's probably going to be my top Toronto stack right there. So then now moving on to Indiana and the Warriors. I'm expecting one more blowout here. The Indiana Pacers, I think, will handle them. Even with Sabonis against Green, sometimes Green sits out, and then the other plays overall. They're a solid team. The Indiana Pacers, even without Oladipo, Brogdon being out or doubtful, that'll just give us some more run to be able to afford guys like Justin Holiday and Jeremy Lamb and even Doug McDermott. He'll get some run out, easily get some run off the bench here, and TJ McConnell too, include him. So yeah, so that's pretty much backcourt guys that you can stick in there like in your overall slate. Keep in mind them because that's a good suggestion right there. So looking at here, our quick breakdown of that late game, 10:30, maybe a smash spot, late sweat game, Indiana and Golden State. Let the optimizers at least get to where it needs to be. Switch the games up. And then I'll let you all go. I'm going to get my coffee started and make sure I get about my day of business here. So here we got to once again look at the value like always, like I'll do. You can look at this percent chance to hit. This is unique to any other site. Percent chance to hit the, trying to get that to hover to show, current salary, hit at current salary. So that's something interesting probably for tournaments you can look at. You got projection, of course. Here's the value right here, what we need. Okay, so it looks like we got possibly some stars at the top here. Lamb, Spellman, Russell, and Green getting you most and best value. 5.4x. I'm not seeing a lot of popping value, interestingly, here. Let's see what the domination station gives us over here, though. For this one, it's like I switched to the wrong game. I need Indiana and Golden State. So these advanced metrics here show that Goga, a center for Indiana, as he may come in and get some run, he'll be the most value popping guy. Edmund Sumner. So it's looking at guys for some reason in the front court. Here's your backcourt guy, Jeremy Lamb, McDermott, I mentioned, and Miles Turner. You can include him in your Pacer stack. If you want to look at Golden State guys such as Jordan Poole and D'Angelo Russell, that is fine. So there you go. Sometimes like sort of did last night, looking as a nice mix and match of my top value guys, which do include on both sites actually Jeremy Lamb, as I'm noticing here, and perhaps D'Angelo Russell popping on both sides, right? Yep, there's D'Angelo and there's Jeremy Lamb. What I actually did though to kind of give you another summary review of what happened last night is I took the guys because you cannot get an ownership projection. This does not show ownership projection for this Showdown Slate. This one here does not. So there's nowhere available that I know that you can actually have an actual projection. You can do it on the main, slate of the ownership projection. So the way I try to get ownership projections, I run these as tournament. I'll run this and then have it show like I do 100 lineups right here. Change the lineups that I want, the amount that I want. Put it down to 2 unique players so I get a mix of different players. And then I let the optimizer show me how many times it's bringing to me certain guys. Certain guys are going to be 100%, 80%, and so on down the line. So with it showing to me, these guys are going to be highly owned, and I'll figure out how it went. Like last night here, to finish up, I'm just going to bring out ownership projections, bring up that picture again for that Showdown Slate with Dallas and Portland. Let's see what we had for first place. Ownership wise, we had the captain spot Lillard had with it 77%. Of course, no surprise. Doncic for the utility spot was only actually was very high. Of course, 87%. No surprise. Gary Trent, I thought it was going to be too high. He was actually at 25% last night. So I went under on that, and that was my mistake. Anthony was at Carmelo, that is, drafting only, interestingly, 5%. 5% draft on Carmelo Anthony and Showdown Slate. I went over on that. I recommended last night to go up around 50% for him. And that's what happened. You needed to do that to be above weight on certain players overall. Seth Curry was another one I recommended, I believe, or at least 40% I recommended. He was only drafted 2% on the Showdown Slate. So this is how you make your money on the Showdown Slate now, I believe. Trevor Ariza was another one, 6% rounded off. Drafted on the Showdown Slate last night. I thought he was going to be up around 40%. He was not. I made sure I got a minimum of 40% on Ariza. So that's what happened. He crushed value. I'm surprised more people didn't pick up on this. But on a Showdown Slate, who knows? Maybe people were not paying attention, but we got only 6% on a Trevor Ariza who started last night. Not nearly as high as Gary Trent for Portland. No, it didn't make sense. So they got him involved and they put him in the game. And Carmelo Anthony, I mean, come on. So these guys are highly under-owned. They were part of my recommendations for last night. So keep following it and go to that site, wealthyfantasyfootball.com, directly there. As I'll try to get it, actually just for some reason didn't show up on my blog on the main page. So maybe it's better going to hoopball.com and in forums and see where you can find it there. All right, we'll leave you with that for the day and have another good one with Showdown Slates for tonight.